Hello everyone, this is Tara with Tara's Tuesday Talk, and I am just so grateful that you're taking a moment to listen to the talk today because I have some amazing information to share with you. Recently, Faith to Action last year actually put out results for a study, an extensive study that they did on U.S. Christian churches and the Christian body and their perception and support of orphanages and orphan care overseas and missions. The study is just amazing. There's so much information there, and it really helps shape our perspective of what's going on as a whole in our Christian church in the States as our support of missions, specifically in orphan care. And so I want to share you just a tidbit from their study today, and then I'll send you to their website if you want to get more information. So I think the biggest finding that impacted me was how much the Christian church supports orphanages specifically. So specifically the U.S. Christian church sends $2.5 billion a year to orphanages only, not other orphan care options. And so this is like 1 in 5 of Christians in the U.S. churches that support orphan care. It's $2.5 billion sent to orphanages. And so that is a huge amount. It shows the generosity of the hearts of the Christian, obviously, but also gives us an awareness of where the funding is going as the body of Christ and supporting what we're doing to support orphan care globally. And so the takeaway from having this information is that there's a lot of money out there to support orphan care and to really make a proper shift or a proper impact on what is happening globally for orphans around the world. And so there is plenty of funding out there. And I think that was a really amazing finding that they had. And so the next part is kind of like who's been. So 4 million. And why are they supporting this? So 4 million Christians have been on a trip overseas to an orphanage, and 30% of Christians interested in mission trips always want to go to an orphanage. So kind of like this perception of, if I'm going on a mission trip, I want to visit an orphanage, is 30% of those that travel overseas for a mission trip. So that's a pretty large amount, a pretty big group of U.S. Christians want to go visit an orphanage. And so despite the research, and they probably just haven't heard the research, that it's actually damaging to those children to have visitors in and out of their lives like we used to do for mission trips as well. And so we ended that practice because of what we found out, how it affects the children long term. But that information just probably isn't out there yet for these churches. And so let's get through the findings, and then we're going to talk about maybe what we can do with that a little bit. So finding number 2, and apologize, I'm reading. I could not memorize all this, but is that this is huge. 86% of Christians believe that orphanages have a positive impact on children. Same as I did when I started working in orphan care. Like, yeah, we need orphanages. They're doing, the best thing for kids. So that's 86% in this study. 96%, but okay, so here's the flip side. 96% of these same people studied. So 86% believe orphanages are positive and a great place for kids. That's 86. 96% of the same people believe that a family environment is essential for children. So they believe kids should be and should have a family environment. And so of those same studied, 91% believe orphanages are necessary. Like, we don't have an option other than orphanages. And so what we're finding out is that U.S. Christians are in total agreement that children need family, but they need more information to understand that orphanages aren't the only option, that orphanages aren't necessary if we provide a family environment for the child through foster care or family preservation. And so the biggest finding from this is that if we can get the information out there, the body of Christ is ready to receive. They believe family is good, and they just don't understand that that's an option of them supporting that same child to be in a family instead of an orphanage, with the proper, shift in the model and communication getting out there. Okay, finding number 3 is 72% of Christians that were given the information were inspired to change their support towards family care. And so I hope I'm sharing that correctly, but 72% of Christians surveyed feel inspired to change towards family care over orphanages. So yes. And then 81% believe ending the need for orphanages is a worthwhile goal. So they were just asked, hey, if there was family care options, do you believe it would be a worthwhile goal to work towards ending orphanages totally, like we did in the States back in after World War II? And 81%, a whopping 81% said yes, of course. And so basically, for the U.S. Christian church, if they got the information, if they understood that family care is an option for those children in orphanages, they would support it. They would shift their support to that. And so we're talking about shifting $2.5 billion towards family care solutions. So you can go and read this study yourself. I'm obviously just giving you a snapshot, and there's so much more to it. There's a flyer that gives a summary, but then they have the whole study. You can read pages and pages of the study, who they studied, where they did it, and all of that in the U.S. And so I encourage you to go read that. The reason I wanted to share this amazing study with you today is encouragement first. If you feel called, if you're jumping in as an advocate for family-based care for us, be encouraged that, there's a mosquito, sorry. Be encouraged that when you share this, 81% of the people you share it with, per se, are going to be like, oh, that makes total sense. If I can support family-based care movement, I can get kids in family care instead of orphanages. And so 81%, people are understanding the why, because they do believe family is better for children. And so it's just us as the body of Christ coming together. And I want to put out there and make sure we understand that if you're already supporting an orphanage, I'm not exactly saying pull your support from the orphanage and come support Identity Mission or another organization in the country you support doing orphan care, and family care, foster care, or family preservation. Now, if God connects you to one of those organizations and you feel called to that, go for it, because you are doing a good thing. But if you've been involved in an orphanage in a country for a long time, the better step is to go bring this information to them, help them get training and understand the research behind why, as an orphanage organization, they should shift and how they can shift to a model that's family-based care. They can turn their buildings into schools, community centers, daycares that provide prevention against that orphan crisis, and then the children that they're caring for, they can work to move them into foster care or back home with reintegration and support of the biological family where safe and appropriate. And so this has been done, and so there's wonderful information and tools and resources to help that orphanage do that. And so you actually can be, and you can inspire them towards that, and make that your goal with this information. Now, if they're not willing and they just don't want to do that shift for whatever reasons, and there's many, many reasons out there, then you can say, okay, I really want to do what I know is best for children and get them in family, and look for an organization in that same area that may be starting family preservation or foster care. Now, that's a long conversation that we're not going to get into today, but I'm happy to talk with you through that and explain and share with you what some other supporters, entire churches have done with partnering with their sponsor orphanage in transitioning their care model, and how that has been successful. We've personally walked with a couple orphanages in that, and so it is possible, and you can be that influence for that organization. So how else are you going to use this information? So you can share it with your church. If your church is looking at how they want to support orphan care overseas, or if they are supporting several orphanages, maybe don't have a huge relationship with them to help them transition, they can then choose to support a family-based care model, and you can show them the why behind that with this study. Basically, it's just the understanding that if we can help the whole body of Christ, the U.S. church, one church at a time, one person at a time, shift, take their understanding of family is better and shift it to, oh, that means I'm going to support family care, not orphanages, then we really can move this, we can push this movement forward a much quicker pace than we're looking at like our lifetime. Jorge and I are expecting it's going to take our lifetime to transition all of Honduras, or to be a part of transitioning Honduras mindset from using orphanages to using family-based care. And so maybe we can speed this up a little bit across the globe, because there are other there are other supporters, churches, organizations like Faith to Action working towards this goal. So basically, we're just uniting our efforts a little quicker, a little further reach. So you can do your part with this by taking this study and helping others see it much quicker. And so, we're going over time a little bit, I think, but I try to get these done in 10 minutes. But I do also want to show you the, it's plenty of reason why to do the shift from orphanages to foster care or family preservation, that it's the best for the child. But if that's not reason enough, something else you can take that really helps people see, like, okay, I know family's better, but man, orphanages are necessary. How do we even shift that? To kind of also change that mindset of the necessary part, because we just think there's so many kids, is something Jorge and I have seen at some other workshops, and it's just kind of a really easy way for people to picture the shift. Okay, so I'm going to show you real quickly. So typically in an orphanage, we have a director. I don't draw well, so Jorge does this much better, so forgive me ahead of time. But typically we have a director who then maybe supports, let's say it's a really good orphanage. They have a psychologist on staff who then supports, let's say, 3 caretakers. Tias, we call them. It's usually a woman over the dorm room, auntie. They call them auntie. So those 3 then take care of 20. This is our very, very typical orphanage here in Honduras. So we got 3 dorm rooms, maybe little boys, little girls, teens, boys and girls separated in different dorms, okay? And we've got 1 caretaker over each of them. That's actually a good ratio for a typical orphanage here. So what we have, it's supposed to be like a triangle. Hence my reason that I don't draw things usually. Okay, so what we have is like a triangle of care here. Director over the orphanage, psychologist. If it's a really well-run orphanage, they have a psychologist on staff. And then your 3 caretakers over your dorms of 20 kids. So basically what you're doing with the family-based care model is you're flipping this. You're flipping this, and you're giving, instead of giving these handful of support to this mountain of children, you're giving this mountain of support to 1 child. And so what that looks like in this mountain of support is, the local church, maybe that's 20 people in the church, is supporting the 1 foster family, which is then supported by the identity mission caretaker staff. I mean, these are a little out of spot, but you get the idea, which is then supporting the child. Okay, so let's go the other way. So I'm so good at this. So the church, the local church, or local church, identity mission staff, basically the community, DNAF, the government, all of these people are supporting, let's say, our caseworker. So there's 1 caseworker, and then that 1 caseworker is supporting the family, the foster family, or the family preservation family, so the biological family, who's then supporting the child. And so the child is getting all of this support, instead of being 1 in many. There's many supporting 1. And so you can kind of get the idea. And that's what happens when we shift our model from orphanage model, and this is very typical. I could list probably 100 orphanages that this is what it looks like here in Honduras, to this model. And so where the child is getting all the support, whether it's a child in foster care or a child in their family preservation program that's getting the support. And so you can just see the quality of support that is switched. So to say orphanage is necessary, is not realizing that here I'm having to pay director, I'm having to pay psychologist, and I'm having to pay 3 caretakers, okay? So here, the only one getting paid is, the government's paying their people, but the only one that's getting paid by the support from the U.S. Christian churches that are sending the money overseas to missions is the identity mission caseworker. Or she was here, whichever. So our foster families sometimes get a stipend or sometimes get some support, but they don't get a ton that looks around to, what we've factored in, like averaging out the cost with the kids in the program is about $25 per month per foster child for identity mission to support them properly, paying the caseworker who has 10 to 15 cases. Okay, now if it's a family preservation, it's even less, and then you're looking at time frames. So in an orphanage, you're supporting these 20 kids paying these salaries, paying their school, paying their clothes, paying everything for 18 years for the most of them. This one, a foster child's in our program max around 4 or 5 years, and oftentimes less as they get to permanency. And then family preservation, they're in our program for 2 years max. And so you're supporting more children for less funds from the U.S. church. So that $2.5 billion that the U.S. church is pouring into orphanages could extend dramatically farther, could reach farther, could support more children. So it's foster care is about a third of the cost for the same amount of children in support annually than an orphanage has to spend on supporting that same amount of children. Okay, and we have some really solid, specific numbers. If this helps your church, or whoever you're trying to share this information with, if the financial part helps them see more that orphanages aren't necessary, that we can build this with less money, and that this shift is possible, then we even have some more solid numbers we can share with you, so that you're equipped and can bring them the information the way. So you've got the biblical information that we know God says He sets the lonely in families, and so much more. And then now you have the scientific evidence from research and studies, and then you have the financial proof to say, hey, we're going to be better stewards of our funds, make a bigger impact long term, serve more children, and get them in safe homes quicker, if we do the family-based care model. Okay, that was a lot of information. If you're really interested in getting deeper into this information, we have started advocacy classes where you get to hang out with myself and Jade, and just talk through all of this so that you feel super equipped. Maybe you're just considering changing your model as mission director at your church or whatever it might be. And so you can take this class and really ask questions and think through the why, and the how, and all of that. And so these advocacy classes, they can be one-on-one, we can gather a group together, whatever is going to support you the most, and we can get you all of this information, and talk you through some of those questions that you might have of why, as the U.S. Christian Church, you should send whatever part of that $2.5 billion that you're sending, you should send to family-based care in either the country you're already serving, here to support Honduras family-based care movement with Identity Mission, or even locally, maybe there's something you're doing or wondering what to do. So please reach out. The advocacy classes are available all the time on your schedule, so just let us know if you want to be a part of that. All right, I'm going to wrap up because this has been a long video. I'm going to leave the link for the Faith to Action study that you can go read more about it. But please take the time to absorb that information and ask the Lord what He wants you to do with it. How can you play your part? Because we've talked before that, you saying something, advocating to one person can then spread to many, and you don't know what entire church missions model or choices or what they decide they're going to support. You don't even know what you're influencing, what God's using you for, if you don't just start talking and sharing. So let us get all that information in your hands so you feel confident in that. All right, guys, have a great Tuesday. Thanks for listening. Bye.